China's nuclear power development is one of the most ambitious, complex, and strategically significant energy transitions in the modern world, reflecting the country's economic rise, technological modernization, and geopolitical aspirations, as well as its urgent domestic need to reduce carbon emissions while meeting massive electricity demands, because China is the world's largest energy consumer and carbon dioxide emitter, making the role of nuclear power not only central to its energy security strategy but also to global climate change mitigation efforts. And the roots of China's nuclear program stretch back to the 1950s during the Cold War, when the newly founded People's Republic of China, under the leadership of Mao Zedong, sought nuclear technology both for defense and civilian purposes, initially receiving Soviet assistance for its first research reactors and uranium enrichment capabilities until the Sino-Soviet split in the early 1960s forced Beijing to develop indigenous expertise, which, although initially focused on nuclear weapons, gradually expanded into civilian nuclear power with the establishment of the China National Nuclear Corporation, CNNC, in the 1980s and the introduction of the first commercial nuclear power reactor at Qinshan in Zhejiang province in 1991, symbolizing China's transition from a weapons-only nuclear state to a country embracing peaceful nuclear energy for electricity production. And this first phase of development was characterized by reliance on foreign technology partnerships, such as with France's Framatome, Canada's CANDU reactors, and Russia's VVER technology, as China's engineers learned to assimilate, replicate, and indigenize designs to build up domestic capabilities, laying the foundation for the later development of homegrown reactor models such as the CPR-1000 and eventually the advanced Hualong One HPR-1000, which China now seeks to export as evidence of its technological maturity. 1. Nuclear power's role in China expanded significantly in the 2000s and 2010s, driven by multiple policy priorities. First, to diversify the energy mix in order to reduce reliance on coal, which still accounts for around 55 to 60% of electricity generation and contributes heavily to air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. Second, to enhance energy security by reducing dependency on imported oil and natural gas, which are vulnerable to geopolitical risks. And third, to position China as a global leader in advanced energy technology, consistent with its broader ambitions in areas such as high-speed rail, 5G telecommunications, and artificial intelligence, all under the strategic umbrella of initiatives like Made in China 2025 inches 2. By 2020, China had become the world's third largest producer of nuclear power, after the United States and France, with more than 50 reactors in operation and about 20 under construction, and its official targets include increasing nuclear capacity to 70 gigawatts (GW) by 2025 and up to 150 gigawatts by 2035, making nuclear a backbone of its low-carbon transition. Though these targets have been adjusted and debated based on economic conditions, construction challenges, and public safety concerns, particularly after the Fukushima accident in Japan in 2011, which caused a temporary freeze on new project approvals in China and prompted a comprehensive safety review of all existing plants and those under construction. 3. Despite this pause, China resumed nuclear expansion with stricter regulatory standards, stronger emergency preparedness, and a renewed emphasis on Generation 3 reactor designs, which incorporate passive safety systems, double containment structures, and longer operating lifetimes, reflecting lessons learned from both Chernobyl and Fukushima. And positioning China as one of the few countries still actively expanding nuclear power at scale, while many Western nations either slowed or phased out nuclear due to public opposition, cost overruns, or political pressures. 4. China's nuclear program is also closely tied to its state-owned enterprise model, with key players like CNNC, China General Nuclear Power Group (CGN), and State Power Investment Corporation (SPIC) leading different projects under a coordinated national energy policy overseen by the National Energy Administration (NEA) and the State Council, ensuring that nuclear development is strategically planned, financed, and executed as part of national development priorities rather than left to fragmented private market dynamics, which gives China a unique capacity to mobilize resources, standardize designs, and accelerate construction timelines compared to liberalized energy markets. 5. Moreover, China has been aggressive in pursuing technological innovation, moving from dependence on foreign designs toward indigenous development, exemplified by the Hualong One, a Generation 3 pressurized water reactor that integrates elements from French and Chinese designs, has a capacity of 1,150 megawatts per unit, and is designed for both domestic deployment and export to countries such as Pakistan, Karachi Nuclear Power Plant Units K2 and K3, Argentina, and potential partners in the Middle East and Africa, representing a new era in which China is not only a consumer but also a supplier of global nuclear technology, challenging the traditional dominance of Western and Russian firms in the international market. 6. Alongside pressurized water reactors, China is also investing heavily in next-generation technologies such as high-temperature gas-cooled reactors (HTGRs), fast breeder reactors (FBRs), and thorium-based molten salt reactors (MSRs), all of which aim to improve fuel efficiency, reduce nuclear waste, and enhance safety margins, with demonstration projects like the Shidao HTGR showing progress and the China experimental fast reactor marking an entry into advanced fuel cycles that could eventually close the nuclear fuel loop by reprocessing spent fuel, reducing dependency on uranium imports, and generating long-term sustainability of nuclear energy. China's nuclear power trajectory is not only a matter of domestic energy policy but also deeply intertwined with its foreign policy, environmental diplomacy, and technological competitiveness, because as the country commits to achieving carbon neutrality by 2060, nuclear power is increasingly framed as an indispensable pillar of its climate strategy, complementing massive investments in renewables such as solar and wind while providing reliable baseload power that intermittent renewable sources cannot yet guarantee at scale. And this reliability is crucial for maintaining grid stability across a country of continental scale with vast industrial hubs and growing urban populations, making nuclear not just an energy choice but a socio-economic necessity for sustaining China's growth and urbanization. Furthermore, nuclear power enhances China's strategic autonomy by reducing vulnerability to supply disruptions of imported fossil fuels, which could be affected by tensions in the South China Sea, the Strait of Malacca, or broader geopolitical rivalries, and thus nuclear energy is viewed in Beijing as an element of national security as much as an element of energy policy. 8. While at the same time nuclear development generates powerful synergies with China's global ambitions under the Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), through which it offers nuclear technology cooperation, financing, and construction services to partner countries, thereby exporting not just reactors but also Chinese technical standards, project management models, and political influence, as illustrated by the financing of nuclear projects in Pakistan and negotiations with countries like Egypt, Kenya, and Saudi Arabia, raising questions among Western analysts about nuclear proliferation risks, dependency relationships, and geopolitical leverage. 9. Domestically, nuclear power has faced challenges in terms of public acceptance, especially after Fukushima, which heightened concerns about seismic risks, waste management, and accident preparedness, and although the Chinese government has strong control over information and public debate, it has nonetheless had to respond to local opposition in some provinces where planned projects were delayed or cancelled, reflecting the tension between top-down energy planning and grassroots risk perceptions. But despite these hurdles, nuclear has retained strong political backing at the highest levels of government, partly because it aligns with multiple policy objectives: economic modernization, industrial upgrading, emissions reduction, and international prestige. 10. The economic dimension of nuclear power in China is significant because nuclear projects involve huge capital expenditures, long construction periods, and complex supply chains that stimulate domestic industries ranging from metallurgy to robotics. And by standardizing reactor designs like the Hualong One, China has been able to reduce costs, shorten construction times, and scale up production of components, creating economies of scale that few other countries can achieve, which not only strengthens the domestic industrial base but also enhances export competitiveness. Yet, nuclear economics are still debated, with critics pointing out that costs can overrun, especially for novel designs, and that renewables paired with energy storage may offer cheaper alternatives in the long term. Although proponents argue that nuclear's low operating costs, reliability, and long lifetimes up to 60 years make it indispensable in a balanced energy portfolio. 11. The environmental aspects of nuclear power in China are equally complex. While nuclear plants produce virtually no direct carbon emissions, they do involve challenges of uranium mining, radioactive waste management, and potential accident risks, and China has invested in reprocessing research and deep geological repository planning to address the back end of the fuel cycle, though concrete solutions are still under development, with the Baishan region in Gansu province being explored for a long-term waste repository, highlighting that the success of nuclear expansion depends not only on building reactors but also on building robust systems for fuel supply, waste disposal, and public trust. 12. Looking toward the future, China is betting on advanced nuclear concepts to leapfrog existing limitations. For instance, small modular reactors (SMRs), which can be factory-built, shipped, and deployed in remote or offshore locations, are being actively researched by Chinese firms as a way to expand nuclear energy beyond large centralized plants, and these SMRs could play a role in powering islands, industrial parks, or desalination projects, while floating nuclear power plants are also under design for deployment in the South China Sea, raising both opportunities for energy supply and concerns about militarization and ecological impact in contested maritime zones. 13. Additionally, thorium-based molten salt reactors, a technology with potential advantages in fuel abundance and safety, are being developed at the experimental level in Gansu, positioning China as a possible global leader in this niche if the technology proves viable, while fast breeder reactors like the CFR 600 under construction in Fujian are expected to contribute to closing the fuel cycle by reusing plutonium from spent fuel, though they also raise international sensitivity due to dual-use concerns given that breeder technology can produce weapons-usable materials. 14. In the global context, China's nuclear ambitions interact with issues of governance, non-proliferation, and international competition, since bodies like the International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) oversee safeguards to prevent diversion of nuclear materials, and China has generally presented itself as a responsible actor adhering to international regimes, but its export activities, especially to politically unstable or strategically sensitive countries, have drawn scrutiny from Western governments who fear that nuclear cooperation could translate into political influence or security risks, making China's nuclear diplomacy both a tool of soft power and a source of friction with the United States and its allies, particularly as Washington has sought to limit Chinese access to advanced nuclear technology collaborations while promoting its own reactor vendors as alternatives for developing nations. 15. From a technical standpoint, China's rapid expansion has also raised questions about safety culture, workforce training, and regulatory independence, because while China has upgraded its nuclear safety law and strengthened the National Nuclear Safety Administration (NNSA), the sheer pace of construction has led some analysts to worry whether safety oversight can keep up with industry growth, although official data indicate that China's operating record so far has been strong, with no major accidents reported, and international peer reviews under the IAEA have generally found China's practices to be improving, though continuous vigilance is needed given the high stakes of any potential incident. 16. In sum, China's nuclear power program represents a multifaceted phenomenon that combines domestic energy imperatives, industrial policy, environmental strategy, and global influence, and while it faces challenges of cost, safety, waste, and public perception, it remains one of the most dynamic and ambitious nuclear agendas in the world, positioning China not only as a key player in the global nuclear industry but also as a country whose decisions on nuclear power will have far-reaching consequences for climate change, energy geopolitics, and technological innovation in the 21st century, because if China succeeds in scaling nuclear power to the levels it envisions while simultaneously integrating renewables and improving efficiency, it could set a model for other developing nations on how to pursue large-scale decarbonization. But if it fails or suffers a serious accident, the repercussions would reverberate across global nuclear policy, public trust, and the broader trajectory of the world's energy transition.